After the American Revolution, talk of liberation and justice began to circulate amongst the colonies. It was during this time that many prominent American leaders began to emerge, such as William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass. These two authors and orators represented the perspective of the Northern abolitionists and enslaved blacks. The works and speeches of both leaders helped keep the abolitionist movement alive in America and influenced the enactment of the Emancipation Proclamation, putting an end to slavery. American abolitionist Frederick Douglass becomes one of the most prominent leaders of the abolitionist movement through his take on slavery portrayed through his speeches and writings. He believed that the U.S. was taking a toll in the wrong direction, and that toll was the system that we call slavery. Conversing his ideas and thoughts against slavery through his works and speeches, Frederick Douglass becomes one of the most influential African American abolitionist leaders that contributed to the end of slavery. Born into slavery in Talbot County, Maryland in 1818, Douglass experienced the horrors and cruelties of slavery firsthand. His triumph at the age of 20 is when he escapes slavery and soon begins his life as an abolitionist fighting for the rights of his people. Abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison spoke at a meeting of the Bristol County Anti-Slavery Society in New Bedford, Massachusetts on August 9, 1841.
You are no more natives of Africa than they themselves are natives of Great Britain. Just so then in regard to African colonization. But our colored population are not aliens. They were born on our soil. They are bone of our bone and flesh of our flesh. Their fathers fought bravely to achieve our independence during the Revolutionary War without immediate or subsequent compensation. They are entitled, in fact, to every inch of our southern and much of our western territory, having worn themselves out in its cultivation and received nothing but wounds and bruises in return. Are these the men to stigmatize as foreigners?
Garrison's speech struck Douglass and thus began the spark of Douglass's anti-slavery oratories and works. Soon after, Douglass spoke on Nantucket Island at the annual convention of the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. He spoke in front of a majority white audience, and evidently this speech on August 11, 1841 got Douglass noticed and put him on a path towards the abolitionist leader he is known for today. As Douglass was rising as a public figure, his talent and oratory were recognized by all. Many were surprised and unable to believe that a former slave that received no formal education could be able to eloquently deliver a speech so passionately. In May of 1845, Frederick Douglass wrote and published his autobiography, The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. In this autobiography, Douglass expresses his experiences living a life as a slave and the hardships and passions that allowed him to keep strong. He stated in his autobiography, "I prefer to be true to myself, even at the hazard of incurring the ridicule of others, rather than to be false and incur my own abhorrence. From my earliest recollection, I date the entertainment of a deep conviction that slavery would not always be able to hold me within its foul embrace." Douglass stands as such a lionized figure because this quote inspires many. He comments that slavery, as cruel as it is, will never be able to be in his reach of its grasp. He provokes many to arise and stand against the American policy of slavery and its institution of it because he says that slavery will not stop us because we will fight. His autobiography sold thousands of copies and went on to write 2 more autobiographies, and eventually even published a newspaper. The North Star, published in 1847, tackles racial equality. It was named the North Star because many slaves used the North Star to guide them through the night. In the newspaper, Douglass discusses the difference between what Americans claim to be their Christian belief and the horrors, prejudices, and discrimination of people that he himself witnessed. Douglass delivers his speech, The Meaning of July 4th for the Negro, on July 4th, 1852. In this speech, Douglass claims that although July 4th is a day to celebrate America and its goodness, it is ironic that he is giving a speech about slavery on a day celebrating America and its freedoms. He states the race problem in America and talks about how the American government fails to defend and protect the rights of African American citizens. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. Is this the land your fathers loved, the freedom which they toiled to win? Is this the earth whereon they moved? Are these the graves they slumber in?
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim.
Garrison started to become involved in the abolitionist movement. At 25, he joined the American Colonization Society. Garrison believed that the purpose of the society was to encourage the freedom of blacks. Sadly, he was misled, and the true purpose of this organization was to reduce the amount of free slaves in the U.S. In 1830, Garrison resigned from the organization and started the Liberator. He formed the New England Anti-Slavery Society and the American Anti-Slavery Society to request emancipation. The American Anti-Slavery Society consisted of many abolitionists such as Lewis Tappan, Theodore Dwight Weld, and Arthur Tappan, but Garrison was viewed as the most radical. By 1840, there were about 2,000 auxiliary societies. Altogether, these societies had 150 to 200,000 members. These societies sponsored meetings, adopted resolutions, and signed anti-slavery petitions to be sent to Congress. The meetings of these societies were effective when Frederick Douglass and William Well Brown spoke. In 1839, the national organization split because Garrison and his members were very radical. These members that were not as radical created their own group, the American and Foreign Anti-Slavery Society. August 1857, Garrison and Frederick Douglass made a series of 49 anti-union speeches.
William Lloyd Garrison was a Christian author who published The Liberator, which is credited with being the most uncompromising anti-slavery journals in American history. His resolute tone and unwillingness to alter it caused Southerners to despise him. In response to its harsh tone, he wrote, "If those who deserve the lash feel it and wince at it, I shall be assured that I am striking the right persons in the right place." This journal urged the nation to accept newly freed slaves with open arms into American society by proposing that reliable opportunities be readily available for them. In one of his entries, he writes, "They may not be as intelligent as these, but when will they become such? Will keeping them in a degraded state do it? Will depriving them of all opportunity for improvement for gaining self-respect do it? No, not at all." The first issue of the newspaper was published on January 1st, 1831 with the motto, "Our country is the world, our countrymen are mankind." The paper was based out of Boston, however it quickly spread across the North. Garrison makes his presence known by writing, "I do not wish to think or speak or write with moderation. Urge me not to use moderation in a cause like the present." The Liberator argued that the rights guaranteed to man by the Declaration of Independence should be applied to everyone regardless of color. In 1835, a series of riots broke out around the nation, mainly in Boston, Philadelphia, and New York. October 31st, 1835, an abolitionist, George Thompson, came to speak to a group of abolitionists in Garrison's office building. The group of men who held a pro-slavery rally last month arrived at the office, tore down the meeting sign, and dragged William Lloyd Garrison down the street. It was later noted that the mob hoped to punish Garrison for preaching the abominable and dangerous doctrine that all men are created equal.
Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison were friends from 1840 and also co-workers for the Anti-Slavery Society. The two began to drift apart in 1848, and Douglass began his own paper, the North Star, instead of continuing to write for Garrison's paper, the Liberator. These two papers became competitors against each other. Later on, Frederick Douglass had his first encounter with Abraham Lincoln in the summer of 1863. He was displeased with the war effort and the salary of black soldiers being half without whites. The meeting between the two went well despite their difference in political views. Douglass was very impressed and felt himself to be in the presence of an honest and great man. In part of his description of their first encounter, Douglass stated, "I at once felt myself in the presence of an honest man, on whom I could love, honor, and trust without reserve or doubt." Douglass needed Lincoln on his side if he wanted to bring an end to slavery, and Lincoln realized that he needed blacks to help end the war. Them having the same goals is what influenced each other and built their friendship. They realized to win the Civil War, slavery needed to be emancipated, and to emancipate slavery, the war had to be won. When Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st, 1863, Douglass gave a satisfied response. "We are all liberated by this proclamation. Everybody is liberated. The white man is liberated, the black man is liberated, the brave men now fighting the battles of their country against rebels and traitors are now liberated. I congratulate you upon this amazing change, the amazing approximation toward the sacred truth of human liberty."
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be